Want me to start?
Not yet. Not yet. We'll just let people get into the room. It's 2:01. We'll start here in just a minute. Give a people a time to assemble, and I'll introduce. All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started, and um, we're here for the beginning of the new year, continuing the voter skills training that we want to have every month to basically keep bringing us back together to focus on the topics that we all need to be considering as we're getting out there trying to help get people ready to vote, get ready to be engaged and participate in the elections across the state of Alabama. And also a little, we'll have a few other items as well, and you'll see that, just to help try to make some of the laws in Alabama better. There will be a few things that we're asking as far as trying to get you to contact your legislators. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this started and hand it off. The first topic that we're going to talk about today is the municipal elections coming up in Alabama, which is really the biggest game in town as far as elections this year. And so I'm going to hand this off to Roger Ellis. He is our training coordinator for voter services, and so part of the voter services team at the state level. So Roger, I'm going to hand it off to you and let you introduce yourself, and then carry it from here. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending. Um, Today we're going to be talking about municipal elections. Let me try this again.
I could see it.
I just want to make sure the sound was on.
Oh, I didn't hear any
Yeah.
video.
So today we're going to be talking about municipal elections. If you please wait until the presentation is over to ask questions or write them down as we go along to ask later. Our agenda is going to be what are municipal elections, why municipal elections are important. There are 67 counties in Alabama. When do elections occur? Municipalities have problems too. How to find municipal elections, find the municipal election page, the application for a municipal election absentee ballot, know where your city districts are, how do I find the city district, and attend candidate debates. Okay, so what are municipal elections? Municipal elections determine local leaders for cities and towns. They allow residents to select decision makers for their communities. Municipal elections can include positions like city council, mayors, aldermen, and school board members. Municipal elections in Alabama are nonpartisan without political party affiliation. One must be a resident of the municipality to vote. Municipalities pay for these elections. For each municipality, a voter can vote in person or by an absentee ballot. Each municipality will have their own application for absentee ballot. Now, I'll highlight that because what happens, they'll go to the probate site or the election site and download the state or the federal absentee ballot. But each municipality should have their own election page and have their own absentee ballot application. Policy decisions made in Montgomery have a direct impact on their cities. A statement from the organization reads, and with nearly 3 out of 4 Alabamians either in or around our state's top 10 biggest cities, legislation that creates jobs and improves public safety in your communities benefits from the vast majority of Alabamians. And this is from an article called The Big 10 Mayors. These are the Big 10 cities. We have Birmingham, Huntsville, Mobile, Montgomery, Tuscaloosa, Madison, Hoover, Auburn, Decatur, and Dothan. These cities 75% of the voters come from them. It has a little bit of a delay to it.
Some mixed feelings surrounding this new development.
Well, Margot, during tonight's Madison City Council work session, there were quite a few different opinions and options thrown around regarding what to do with Trash Panda Stadium. This is months after the council decided to make additions to the stadium to adhere to MLB standards.
You're using money from our roads, our lights, our traffic signals, maintenance.
It was about money in Madison City Monday night. The City Council's work session discussed spending tens of millions of dollars to meet Major League Baseball mandates. City Council President John Seifert says he bet on Trash Panda Stadium the first time, and he wants to back it up and make it bigger. He breaks down the cost in millions.
The total bond would be about 25. I think the rough estimate is somewhere around 18. It's about 7 for the first floor.
The investment would meet MLB standards, building a clubhouse in left field, but the plan calls for 3 more stories added to generate funding for extra box seating. For Councilmember Karen Denzine, the numbers aren't adding up for her and her constituents.
Because we have people now who are having a hard time making ends meet, right? How can I justify spending this much more money when they have a hard time going to the grocery store, right? Because it's their tax dollars.
Now, the board is still discussing this idea, but resident Margie Daly says it's the people of Madison who will lose.
It's only about 10% of the families that can actually afford to go to the stadium, maybe once a year. So you guys are doing this for the elite sector, for these private boxes. I mean, you are raping the tax dollars. Thank you.
Well, it was not clear when the council plans to revisit the issue. The big fear here, Major League Baseball could decide to take the Trash Pandas away from Huntsville and Madison, leaving the stadium and its new addition vacant. Some asked whether city leaders here reached out to other cities with baseball teams for advice on these additions. Mayor Finley says he spoke to city leaders in Knoxville and Chattanooga, and they are moving forward with similar plans. Margot?
All right, thank you, Savannah.
One of the reasons I show that, it shows how important municipal elections can be and what kind of issues that come up with usually your cities. In this case, it's this baseball stadium that Trash Pandas have. First, the city paid for the stadium, and now they want $30 million of renovations to put these box seats in. And meanwhile, all the roads and schools and everything else in Madison are being neglected. And this is why we should, go to city meetings and pay attention to what's going on. So in 2025, there are estimated to be 450 municipal elections in Alabama. And this is an article I got that from. We wanted to see the article. All politics is still local. Alabama has 67 counties, and the bulk of the elections seem to be centered in this area. We have Limestone, we have Madison, but in this area is the bulk of the population. When do municipal elections occur? Each state is different when it comes to municipal elections. In Alabama, there are some municipal elections in even years and odd years. In March of 2021, Senate Bill HB 119 was signed by Governor Kay Ivey, and this bill moved some municipal elections to odd years, 2025. And there is a link to the bill. When do municipal elections occur? Well, this is the article about where that came. They moved almost all the elections, or some of the elections, to 2025. And this is where I got that article from. Municipalities have problems too. Every municipality has their own problems. They have taxes, stadiums, the libraries, schools, construction, zoning, crime, infrastructure, and jobs. And this is why we need to pay attention to what's going on in your own city. Now, how do you find when municipal elections occur? Well, you can go to the Municipal League of Municipalities page, and here they list the elections by year. So right now, all they're showing is Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Dothan, and Mobile.
Did you click on that link, Roger? Because we're not seeing it.
Yeah, you know,
Mm-mm.
you see it now?
No, I think you maybe have to reshare the whole computer so that it.
See it now?
Yes.
Okay. See, they list what municipalities are having the elections, but they leave the small ones out. In Limestone County, they have like 5 in that county. Or you can go to the Secretary of State site website. Now they list what they call them local. You know, they have a March 20, they have City of Tuscaloosa, they have one in Dothan, and then they have this, all Alabama municipalities still previously listed. They mention Birmingham and Mobile. But still, that doesn't mention all the other small ones. Then, when in doubt, go to the probate office. And here I have a list of all the probate judges in the state of Alabama. And that's how I found out. They kept listing Huntsville as having elections in 2025. So I emailed them. They said, no, we're not having any. I had mentioned municipal election pages, and the city of Madison has a pretty good one. I kind of like what they did. They have all the dates listed, even when the candidates have to put their notices in the last day to run. And here I notice here, last day to establish residency to vote in municipal general elections. That's almost like 30 days before the election. And that wasn't aware of that. I don't know if Madison has that or that's statewide. Election day is going to be August 26th. And then they have the runoff election dates. And then you scroll down, you can see the map of the city of Madison. They have a better one here. This is all your different districts in Madison. And the problem we have with this has a lot of confusion to the voters. This line, this side is Madison County, this side is Limestone County. So you can see the city of Madison also is in Limestone County. So it's hard to try and explain to a voter, even though you live in a different county, you'll be voting for the city of Madison. And that it's a little hard to explain that to the voters. And also have what I like about this too, they have the municipal polling locations. I haven't seen that. And here you see Madison, Limestone. So you can see what your polling locations are to go vote. Now, I had mentioned each municipality election page should have their own application for municipal absentee ballots. In this case, this one I used was from Athens. You can see it's kind of a little casual there. Somebody just printed the address to the top. And it basically looks just like the one you get for the federal government or the state government. But down here, that's where you see the different municipal elections. You have municipal election, the
Roger,
and,
are you showing the absentee application?
The application for municipal absentee ballot.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's not, you can't see it.
You need to change again.
I think you have to share your entire computer in order to be able to flip between.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's pretty casual. They just wrote in the names up there. And like as you can see, it looks a lot like the federal or the state absentee ballot. But down here, you have municipal election, municipal runoff elections, and special elections. That's just about the only change you see in this. And this is the map of Huntsville. And what you see here, it's like I was explaining. Here's the city of Madison, which is going to have elections in August. And part of the city is in Limestone County, part of it's in Madison County. Again, this is why things get confused around here. And it makes it a little bit difficult to try and explain to voters why this is happening. Now, if you need to find where you live, or where your city district is, you can go to the Secretary of State website. And when you go there, go under the My Info. And what this is your registration information. So you just type your name, your first name, last name, and the month, and if you're at WOBOT or not, and hit look up, and there's a pop up. Now, when you first get on here, what you see hide here, when you first get on here, it'll say show. When you click that button, all this opens up. So in this case, for my city, Huntsville City, I'm in District 5. And if you have the commission elections, I'm in District 6. The school, cities, state house, all of your different districts are located in your information, voter information page. And again, you get a chance or organize some candidate debates.
More specifically now on point 2 and 3, and that is faculty and staff. When we're talking about resources, we've got to have very venerated teachers in our school system, not be used for a training facility.
I'm not going to play a whole thing, but this shows what these debates can lead to. And some of these got little, well, let's just say a little fiery, let's put it that way. So in summary, we talked about the municipal elections and how are they important. When do municipal elections occur? And define municipal elections, the municipal election page, application for municipal absentee ballot, know where your city district is, how you find your city district, and attend candidate debates. So, do you have any questions?
Maybe drop the sharing so we can see everybody. Yeah, just a second. I'll put it back to gallery view. So I didn't see any questions in the chat, but Roger, I wanted to just thank you for going through this introduction to municipal elections for Alabama. Next month, we're going to dig in deeper, and what we'd like to do, and this is for the 2025 municipal elections. All of we have local leagues across many counties across the state. What we want to do is for the local leagues to get a handle on which municipalities in their counties are having elections in 2025, but there are a lot of areas that don't have league presence, and that's going to be the challenge because a lot of these rural counties they may or may not have a good website to talk about the information that's out there and how to find whether or not when the elections are. A lot of times it's not even clear. Some municipalities are so small, it's not even clear how to find out the information. But next month we'll be digging in a little bit deeper. And if anyone on this call wants to get involved in helping us pull this information together, when I send out the recording of this, for this meeting today, reach back to us and just let us know what cities and what municipalities that you've got information on. It would really help us because we'll be working to get information about the elections to share statewide. And Roger, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next topic that we're going to touch on is really it's going to be more of an advocacy, but we wanted to share with you some information about something that Alabama really needs. And I'm going to let Kim Bailey introduce it, and then she'll tell you how you can help us try to make this change happen. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy, thanks. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I am going to talk to you about early voting. Alabama, I'm sure all of you on the call know, Alabama does not have early voting, not true early voting. We are one of 3 states that currently does not have it: New Hampshire, Mississippi, and Alabama. And we are trying really hard to change that. So we do have absentee voting, which is cumbersome, difficult, requires many steps. But what we are talking about is actual early voting, where you go in person to a location, not at your home, not anywhere else. You go to a polling location and you vote just like you would on election day. So you take your ID, you get your ballot, you fill it out, and you submit it, and you get your sticker, and you have voted, just like on the election day, but at some point prior. So it's secure, it's easy. You don't have to fill out an application, you don't have to get another ballot, you don't have to do the affidavit, which is prone to errors, and a lot of times those votes don't get counted. You don't know if your vote's counted. Also, they're hard to track, absentee ballots. So this way, you know, you go in, you submit your vote, you voted. So currently there are 2 pre-filed bills for early voting in Alabama. And so we're working on those. There may be some changes before the session starts, but we really would like to push early voting. We have asked people in our call to action email to contact the House Speaker, Nathaniel Ledbetter, and ask him to put an early voting bill on the CC&E committee, Constitution Campaigns and Election Committee in the House, to get that on their schedule so that it can be pushed forward, and also for him to give a favorable recommendation. We've also asked people to contact Wes Allen. He, as many of you probably know, has adamantly said that he will never, ever support early voting. But the feedback we've been getting is that this is something that people really want. We've also kind of felt a turn of the tides, I think, in the legislature. When Tuscaloosa, I live in Tuscaloosa, when we had our Meet Your Legislators event, all of them said that they were open to supporting, they had not seen the pre-filed bills, but they were open to supporting it if it was secure. They would have to see the costs associated with it and all of that, but they were open to it. They did not adamantly say no. So that's progress. And so this early voting is not included in any other bill that has been filed. This is a separate, issue, so it's not been covered in any other thing. But it is, it's good for everybody. It's good for the disabled. It's good for people who work, people who have families. It just gives you flexibility and really gives people an ability to exercise their right to vote. So we would ask you, to help us with these calls to action, supporting this. If you do not receive our call to action email, Kathy, what's the best way for them to get on that? Will you have a link in the email you send out?
I do. I will drop it in the chat here in just a second.
Yeah. So the 2 bills that have been pre-filed at this point are HB 59 by Representative Thomas Jackson and HB 71 by Representative Adeline Clark. So those are the bills that you need to watch at this point.
And I will just say that we're in conversation with both of them to create an amended bill that would pull the best features of one into the other, and they're both amenable to that. So, if we just basically push to get early voting, and then, we expect to have a bill that really is the best we can get when the legislative session starts.
Yes, but Alabama has low voter turnout, and we believe that this would help with that. So it's time we were not one of 3 that don't have something.
The link I just dropped in there does not have any highlight or picture, but that of https:/LWVAL link is how you sign up for the newsletter that includes the calls to action that are coming out. Judy Jones, who's on this call, is the voter editor, as well as the person that helps, she's our communications person, and is getting out the calls to action bright and early on Tuesday morning, so everybody can take a moment and help democracy work better.
Yes, because we chose Tuesdays because committees meet on Wednesday and during the session. So if you can do your call to action on a Tuesday, we hope that they remember it on Wednesday when they're having their committee meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Let me go back to see if I can figure out how to get back to the gallery. All right. So any questions on that? I guess if you sign up for the link, we will we can get you out the calls to action, and if any questions, then we'll definitely put you in touch with the right folks to get the answers you need. Next topic.
I just put the link to the voter education meeting we had about the two bills. So if you want to watch what transpired, that was a really good meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was our last week. We had an educational forum focused on the early voting bills, and we had both legislators, and we had Sam Duff from ACLU come in, and it was a really good conversation. And it really kind of morphed into a how do you advocate with your legislators discussion also, because it's nothing better than hearing from legislators what they think is most effective. So it was good, and I thank you, Roger. I'm glad you dropped that in there. All right, our next topic that we have, moving on, is really, we needed to talk to you about the voting rights restoration, the state of it in Alabama. And I thought before we shift over to talk about what has changed, I wanted our voter rights restoration lead for the state league, Brian Lorge, to give you some information related to how you can get your right. You can, when you're out in community, at voter services events, how can you get people the help that they need? And so, Brian, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
All right, let me. All right. Again, I'm Brian Lorge. I'm the statewide lead for voting rights restoration for the League of Women Voters of Alabama. And I'm going to go through our process very quickly because after me, we're going to have Ellen speaking, and she is the real expert, and I'm just a trained volunteer. So I can't wait to hear. And there have been some major changes, and Ellen's going to cover those, I believe. So I'm going to go pretty quick. Again, what I'm going to talk about real quickly is our process. I'm going to show you the intake and referral form we like to use, kind of where we provide our services, and talk a little bit about the success I had working with another nonpartisan group. I think it was successful for us. So again, our process, we use trained volunteers. We'll periodically do the training sessions live when we think we have enough people to make them worthwhile, or there's major changes and we need to update people on some of the changes. We also usually record these sessions. So if you can't make one of the sessions or are interested, we can send you the link. You can watch the training on your own. And what we learn to do on these is how to analyze cases. And there's 5 possible outcomes. I'm going to start with the best first. Is you analyze the case and the individual does not have a disqualifying felony, you can just go ahead and register to vote. The next best outcome is the individual did have a disqualifying felony, but he meets all the conditions to apply for a certificate of eligibility to register to vote. And we can help them through that process, get them the certificate, and then they can go ahead and register to vote. Sometimes what happens, a person does not meet all the requirements to get it served, and most likely, if they don't meet the requirements, it either has to do with the payment of legal fines and fees and obligations, or they haven't completed their sentence. In those cases, usually what we do is advise them what they need to do to become eligible and try to keep track of them so we know, especially if it's just time, we get past a certain date, we can get back with them, help them to serve. There are certain felonies that require a pardon. If they require a pardon, they have to go through that process. And there are a couple that once you have those felonies, you've permanently lost your right to vote. And one point I like to make is we do this as all volunteers. We get a lot of good support from the Campaign Legal Center. And so everything we provide to these people is free. And I'm going to hang on just a minute because I know no one can read that because I can't read it. I'm going to get off the presentation view and zoom this in a little bit, and hopefully that's better to see. This is our referral form I was talking about. I just want to hit a couple points on it. First, that top part, complete this section, print clearly. That's for the person we're providing the service to, the citizen that has a question about their voting rights. The most key parts there are the getting their full legal name and their date of birth, because those are the things we use. We have to do research to look into their case. The other information is good to have to communicate with them, but it's not critical. The second section, where we're talking about this will be completed by the volunteer. And we ask the questions in there about, like, does a citizen have a prior knowing conviction? And again, if you've had the training, you'll get a lot of information, but that's not critical. If you don't know, it's unsure, what we'd rather do is get the information on the individual, send it to one of our trained people and analyze it, and we'll get back with the individual. And we do have an option. I'm going to go down here, and I should have highlighted on the screen. Down here, there is a way you can send this form to one of two ways. One is you can take a picture of it and send it to that phone number. Now, I'm getting older, my vision's not as good, so I prefer the other one, which is if you just can upload the form and then send it to there. It's easier for me to read, but that's so once you go through that process, we'll get it to a person, someone will do the analysis and get back to you. And one other feature we have in here is sometimes we give you the option, do you want us to go back directly? It goes right, or say if you circle the SDR box, who should receive the follow-up, the citizen or the volunteer? There are times that the initial volunteer has already set up a relationship with the person, and we'll give the information back to the volunteer and let them contact that person, or we do give them the option. We'll go directly back to the citizen that's looking for help. We leave that up to the individual. Where we provide our services, number one, it's really good at the League of Women Voter Services events. If there's at least one person there that is familiar enough with the process so they can answer these basic questions and get the information referral. We partner with outside organizations. The next slide I have will talk a little bit about that. We also do what we call backroom support. We have done events where we know there's going to be a lot of people at a voter services event, and we suspect there might be people that need voting rights restoration thing. We will arrange to have one or two of our volunteers by the phone. And so if someone comes in and needs help and there's no one at the actual event, we can connect them with those people, get the information, and do the analysis pretty quick. And I'm partnering with outside nonpartisan groups. Again, I think we have a very good, strong network of volunteers that know how to do this process. The challenge to us is being able to reach out to people that need these services. And partnering with outside organizations has been very successful. Groups like the NAACP and churches seem to be two good sources. I'm in Limestone County, and the Limestone NAACP had quite a long list of people that needed help, but they don't have really the capability to do an analysis, so they sent it to us, and I did some of those. Robin Buckler did a whole bunch of them for us, and we got back. And we did this a couple months right before the 2024 election. And I think the last count we had were about 20 people that we actually got registered. Well, we had 20 people that could register. Some of them needed serves. I'm not sure all the people got the serves back in time, but we had quite a number of people that had no disqualifying felonies and were able to go ahead and register. So that was quite successful. So anybody that has groups you think with, Kathy and Roger worked a lot with Ross, and I can't tell you what Ross stands for, but that's another group that seems to have a lot of people that have the ability just to register to vote, but they want some backup to make sure that's true, and we supported them. And again, this is real quick, my name and my information. You can either email me or call me if you have any questions. Always glad to help, and we're always looking for more volunteers. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and take any questions.
So thank you, Brian. And I wanted to point out that there's some other groups that Roger and I, for example, tomorrow are going over to a First Stop, which is for homeless individuals here in Huntsville, Madison County. And, you know, once we made that connection and we went and talked to them, they've invited us in, and it's becoming, you know, they were like, we'd like you to come in once a month maybe, but we're going to go tomorrow for the first time and just see what the lay of the land is. But there are always, I think there's a lot of organizations out there that can help you make connections with the communities that they may or may not have someone that needs rights restoration, but people who are homeless definitely need help getting registered to vote. And they need to understand it's not straightforward to people who haven't done it before on how to register people who are homeless. But then there's the other additional layer of complexity, which is if they've lost their right to vote, then you got to also help them understand that as well. And so Brian and his team can help you, get something in your community set up. We certainly would love to. We want to get an expanded presence for VRR across the state. And Freya, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. When we go to an event like at a food pantry, we just show the person the list of the what are they called? The crimes of and ask them
moral turpitudes.
Yeah, moral turpitude to see. And if they say no, we just register them to vote. But is that good enough? Or should we be doing some research?
So I will just say that I think in general, if their memory is really good and they don't, it hadn't been 30 years, it hadn't been 10 years even. I mean, they need to know their statute number in order to know that if they have anything they think might be on that list, then someone needs to look them up. And that's what Brian's team would be able to do for you. And then the benefit of that is if you develop a relationship with these individuals, then when elections come up, you can call them or contact them again and ask them if they've got any concerns. For example, the story that I always go back to is a woman that called me on election day, and she was scared. She had never voted before, but she'd had her rights. She should have never lost her voting rights, but she had never voted. She was in her 50s and had no idea what to do. And so I think having this relationship is going to be, it actually has a lot of benefits, especially when you're helping people in marginalized communities. And also you're going to hear from Ellen in just a minute, some information that may make you want to also need to consider that list, because it's a longer list than it was.
No.
So,
and Kathy, can I just, and again, my background is an engineer, so I don't like soft, touchy stuff. I like hard answers. But when you're doing these events, you kind of get a sense, and Kathy talked about it, whether they actually know what their conviction was, or whether, it's been 25 years ago, they don't. And I found several cases where I've talked to them, they've let me look up their case, and they were eligible to register. So I I'm not like to push them too much, but if they at least let us look them up, lots of times they may be eligible and not even know it. So I think it's good to try to look them up or get the information and get it to one of our volunteers that can look at it and get back with them, because they're having a couple cases. People didn't think they were eligible when we looked them up, and they didn't even need to serve. They did not have a disqualifying felony, and they were very excited.
I was also going to point out that when we're looking at the people who may need rights restoration, there's one thing for us to do the research. There's another thing for the registrar to do the research. And so what we find sometimes is that where we see a real clear case for letting someone go ahead and get registered to vote, they may get turned away by the registrar. And if that happens, then we need to know that. We need to know. So if they came to us in the first place, it's a responsibility to, if they don't want to talk to us, that's fine. But we should touch base just to make sure that they haven't had any trouble. And that to me is also about building relationships. So hope that helps. And I'm going to hand this off now to Ellen, who is with the Campaign Legal Center. And Ellen, could you introduce yourself to folks so that they'll know who you are?
Sure. I was wanting to make sure I was not on mute, but my name is Ellen Boettcher. I am legal counsel at Campaign Legal Center, which is based in Washington, D.C. But I used to live in Mobile, and so I saw Rhoda on the meeting, and Trinka and some others from South Alabama. So it's good to see everyone. I'll give you kind of just a brief overview of HB 100, which passed last year and which added a lot of new convictions to the list of crimes which take away a person's right to vote in Alabama, called crimes of moral turpitude. I dropped the list of these kind of updated convictions in the chat, and that's the Secretary of State's new list. But I think Becky is working on getting a league handout with those updated convictions kind of approved, and I'm sure Kathy will send that out to everyone shortly. So basically what happened with HB 100 is that it was initially not as wide-reaching. It was kind of an election worker protection bill that Representative Adeline Clark introduced in February of last year, and it kind of wanted to increase penalties for crimes committed against election officials, and it wanted to make those particular crimes disenfranchising. And then in April, Representative Jim Hill added an amendment which added numerous convictions to the list of crimes which take away a person's right to vote in Alabama. Among those convictions that Representative Hill included are, in addition to the felonies committed against election workers that Representative Clark had added, it included 6 different statutes, and I'll kind of tell you what those new ones are. One is compelling street gang membership, one is aggravated stalking, another is domestic violence in the 1st degree, domestic violence in the 2nd degree, domestic violence by strangulation or suffocation, and elder abuse. And those are kind of the 6 discrete ones. But the biggest thing that this bill did is adding all inchoate crimes that are on the list already. And so inchoate crimes are basically attempts, conspiracies, and solicitation convictions for anything already on that list. So if you're going through your list and previously somebody had like an attempted burglary 2 conviction, and they would have been able to vote, now that person is no longer able to vote in Alabama without getting a serve. And so what was previously about like 40 disenfranchising state convictions ballooned to about 120 when you think that everything on that list was multiplied by 3. And so numerous crimes are now on the list that weren't disenfranchising before. And we can kind of talk about what to do going forward. The kind of victory we got before the November election is that we stopped this law from going into effect until the day after the election, which was big because it didn't kind of create confusion right before the election. But now we're at a place where it's after the election and the bill is in effect, and we're trying to figure out how you all should register voters, how voters should kind of approach their voting rights. And I think there's a lot that we don't quite know about how the Secretary of State and the Attorney General plan to enforce this bill. But our basic recommendation is that if somebody has one of these new disenfranchising convictions, and the biggest one, again, that you'll see is like attempted something or conspiracy to commit something that's on that list that you all have been working with for a long time. And so we basically are recommending that if somebody is eligible for a serve and they have one of these newly disenfranchising crimes, they should apply for a serve and get that, so they're kind of sure that they are eligible to register to vote. And then you're not advising somebody who maybe isn't eligible without a serve that they are. So it kind of protects you all and protects the voter. And I think we all think that's probably like the safest way to move forward. If somebody's not eligible for a serve, so if they owe legal financial obligations on that past conviction, that is somebody you can reach out to me about, or you can reach out to Brian or Kathy, and just kind of flagging those people, and we can maybe follow up with them and see what they can do. But that is somebody that, you know, before HB 100 went into effect, all they would have needed is to register to vote, and now they're going to have to buy their right to vote back with paying these old legal financial obligations that they might not even know that they had. Let's see. Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll kind of say is that we're not quite sure how Secretary Allen and Attorney General Marshall plan to kind of apply this law, and that's a great question, Trinka. Yeah, so I think that's the biggest unknown, is exactly what they're doing and like what applying it retroactively means. I think we have reason to believe that they intend to apply it retroactively in the sense that it'll apply to people who's, you know, committed an offense before the bill's effective date. So if somebody committed an offense in, like, you know, 2021 under kind of these principles against retroactive disenfranchisement, they should not be disenfranchised by a bill that was passed and made law after they committed that offense. That is kind of violative of the Constitution, of the ex post facto clause, and of kind of these notions of due process. And so they should not be doing that, but I think we have good reason to believe that the Secretary of State and registrars will deny people moving forward. So if somebody's not registered to vote yet and they need to register to vote, I think we have pretty good reason to believe that they will be denied if they have one of these newly disenfranchising convictions. So that's the kind of person that we recommend just applies for a serve if they're eligible for one, and anyone who's not registered yet and has these convictions should just kind of go forward believing that this law will be applied to them, even though it's technically retroactive, because their conviction was before November 6th. Their offense occurred before November 6th, 2024. The more confusing thing that I think we don't know about is whether people will be purged from the voter rolls if they have these convictions and didn't get a serve because they were not eligible for a serve until now. And I don't know if we have intel, or I don't, on whether or not that will happen. But if you hear of anybody that that's happening to, please tell Kathy and Brian and me, because that clearly, again, is retroactive disenfranchisement. And I hope that that doesn't happen, but we don't know whether or not it will, and that would be pretty concerning. But the main thing I think we know that is likely is that people who aren't yet registered will experience problems now, but people who are registered already might not. If you know people who are already registered and have one of these convictions, you could suggest they apply for a serve anyway, just for extra protection. So if you are meeting people that you happen to know, but I think we'll just kind of have to see what happens moving forward. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions if anybody has them.
Yeah, Ellen, I'd like to ask one. And the case you just talked, and I'm going to go back and try to contact. There was a gentleman a couple of years ago I helped that had conspiracy for theft of property 1. And he's one of the ones that fell in the category Kathy told about. When he went to register, their system said he couldn't. I had to go to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. They sent a letter that said, no, he doesn't need a serve. But we didn't have any indication. Generally, I thought, I don't know if it's a Voting Rights Act or something. If you remove someone from the voting list, aren't you required to send them a letter? And what worries me is if you send in a serve application, you might be flagging. And it would be better to wait till see if they get a letter that says you've been removed from the voting rolls and then apply for the serve. I don't know. I'm just asking your opinion.
Yeah, I think that you might get denied your serve if they think that you're eligible to vote. And I think maybe it'll just be good for us to kind of keep track of these things to see what the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles is responding to people, whether they're saying like, you're already registered and like, we're not going to issue you a serve or what. I don't think it matters what order somebody does that in, but it's good for us to kind of keep track of all of this and make sure we know what different agencies are telling people, because there might be different information coming from the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles versus registrars versus the Secretary of State, and just good for us to kind of be aware of this moving forward.
What worries me the most is I'm not sure. I guess we have to look beforehand to see if they're eligible for a serve or if they have LFOs or something. Then, sending the request for the serve if they haven't met the requirements. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely disenfranchised many, many more people than were before. And I think it created these kind of areas of confusion for us and for people who are registering too. So was an incredibly problematic bill that was unfortunate that it passed. And it really allowed Alabama to backslide in terms of felony disenfranchisement.
There was something added on the SB1 legislation related to absentee voting that I guess I'm still uncomfortable that it may have actually added some penalties if someone who is registered to vote has, votes somehow, if they have a disenfranchising, if they shouldn't be voting because of having a disqualifying conviction, then they could be, penalized for voting absentee, knowing that they did, or not even, it didn't say knowing, but I guess to me, it seems like you shouldn't be able to be registered. If you're registered, then it shouldn't be it shouldn't be up to you to, to worry about whether or not you're going to get caught out voting absentee. If you have another disqualifying conviction that just happened during the last legislative session. But I feel like I'm getting myself wrapped around an axle trying to understand this, but it just seems like there's a lot of ways to get caught.
Yeah, because it should be on the registrars to then purge you from the rolls if you are no longer eligible or whatever, before you kind of put yourself in the place where you think you are, and then you have to vote absentee. I can look more kind of into that piece of SB1, but yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of room for error here right now, which is scary for people and people registering others.
Well, and that's one reason that I really strongly encourage people to use that referral form to document their name and their phone number of the people that are asking for help, or that need help to get their situation understood better, because we need to be able to reach back to them. That you don't want to do it and then have them go off on their way thinking they're ready to vote, because if something happens, they're going to need to know how to reach back, and we're going to have to know how to reach them. So anyway, that's
the one last thing I'll say is I think these inchoate convictions don't come up like a crazy amount in state court. People will know if it was attempted something, and I think attempted convictions come up a little bit more than the other ones. The major place this comes up in is federal convictions, and those tend to have more conspiracy convictions than I have seen in state court. So I think if you're seeing a federal conviction in general, it's a little bit more of a gray area generally, and then now with this added layer of the inchoate part, the conspiracy part, definitely flag those for Kathy and Brian in that referral form and in the form that Brian mentioned during his presentation for federal convictions.
I was going to say, I'll attach that form as well as the list of moral turpitudes to the email that goes out after this meeting. So
that's it from me. If anyone has questions, thank you, Kathy and Brian and everyone.
Ellen, I really appreciate your coming in, because I wanted to get the person that would be able to speak with authority on this topic, because I feel like there's a lot of unknowns right now with the way this is rolling out. But that's not going to stop us from trying to help people who need their rights restored. And we've got a good team. We got CLC. We're also working in collaboration with other organizations too, like Greater Birmingham Ministries and other groups who have people. So everyone on this call, just this is so critical, because we're not, we should not be. Let me take this off put it on gallery. But everyone on this call, I mean, is dedicated to getting people to voting and engaging. And one of the things that this is one of the last vestiges from from our 1901 Constitution, which basically created a way to disenfranchise people. It actually created a lot of ways, but when the Voting Rights Act passed, that eliminated a whole lot of ways for people to lose their ability to participate at the ballot box. But this is one of the only ones that's left, and now they're backsliding. And so that's unfortunate. But we can't walk away from it either. So we've actually, just like back in 2018, when they first passed the 2017 law that really established the list of disqualifying convictions, now we're going to be pushing the system to make sure that they understand their process, because I think they passed this law without thinking through, the rollout. And so that's why I'm really glad we got a team already in place, though, to work that. And anyway, any questions on any of these topics? Raise your hand. Come off put your camera on, and I'll or if you want to add something, if you are out there in the field doing something that you want to share on these topics we've talked today, feel free to come on in. All right. So I guess I'm gonna tell you what we're anticipating talking about during the next month's session, which I don't have the date here in front of me, but it's usually the same. It's usually on Mondays this month, because of the holiday yesterday. We moved it to Tuesday, so we'll move back to Monday next month, and we're going to be hearing from the voter services lead from the League of Women Voters in Tuscaloosa about their upcoming municipal election in Tuscaloosa in early March. And then Roger's going to come back in, and we're really trying to dig in deep to understand where all these elections are. Any information, if you want to get involved in trying to find these elections and what the offices are that are going to be on the ballots, we're trying to understand that now, so that we can, we're also, getting into too much detail, but we're working on trying to load up these elections in our Vote 411 system. And that's going to be, that's a test we're running right now to see how we do that with the Tuscaloosa elections. And then we also, I'd like for us, right now I'm planning for us to talk about the voter roll maintenance activities that are going on, because during this month and next month, they're getting ready to publish the list of people that they're pulling off of the voter rolls. And want to help everybody understand how you can find out who's being removed from the rolls, because that's something that they're doing as part of their National Voter Registration Act voter roll maintenance. And you'll be seeing that if you get, I don't know where you find it now. I've got to find out where the paper is supposed to be published in the paper, but there's no paper. So now we have to figure out where it is. And so we'll have more on that next month also, just to help you understand, what's happening to the voter rolls. And really, if you see your name on there, obviously you want to get it updated, and people need to know. that they can go out and look. All right. So thank you all for coming. This is, we are happy to make this a monthly event so we can come together. And if you've got suggestions on topics you want us to cover in the months to come, then just reply back to the email that you'll get later. Thank you. I will talk later. And thank you to the panelists today, or the presenters. All right. Have a good evening or afternoon.
Have a good day.
Bye.